What is going on, everybody? In today's video, we're going to be hopping into a 12-team full PPR mock draft for the 2025 fantasy football season, rolling with one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, tight end spot, and two flex spots, as well as five bench spots. You guys know what time it is. It is that time of year. It is time for us to be aggressively getting into our fantasy football mock drafts and hopping right into mock draft season as the fantasy football season is quickly approaching. So for the purpose of today's video, we're drafting from the 1.1 overall. Throughout the next couple weeks, I'll be putting out videos from every single draft spot from the 1.1 all the way to the 1.12, and I will be doing more and more videos with subscribers, without subscribers, just getting you guys the best overall feel for how mock drafts are looking in the month of June. If you guys are new to the channel, this is all we do here all year long. Free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button on the way in. Without further ado, let's hop right into today's video. All right, so we'll go ahead and start the draft. So when you're sitting at the 1.1, you're obviously going to have two players kind of staring you right in the eye. Jamar Chase and Saquon Barkley, the wide receiver one from last year and the RB1 from last year. And it's very rarely that we see a wide receiver and or running back who was the RB or wide receiver one from the previous year repeat as the wide receiver running back one the following season. But I still think right now, even with Saquon Barkley on the cover of Madden or whatever is worrying you, these still have to be the first two players off of the board. But I will say, I mean, you kind of look into that next tier, JJ, Bijan Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, even Gibbs, and some of the wide receivers that come after Gibbs is off of the board. There's definitely an argument for a lot of players to go at the 1.1 overall, but I think for the sake of today's video, I'm just going to go ahead and roll with Jamar Chase. And, I think what's most important, really, regardless of where you are drafting when it comes to the first round, and I say this every single offseason, I think the most important thing is just understand your overall draft strategy. And if you are going to start your draft by selecting a running back or a wide receiver, that is going to set up the rest of your draft. Let's go ahead and pause the draft here and just take a look at how things kind of shook out for the first round and a majority of the second round there. So I do like that the kind of sleeper, mock, if you do it with the computer, does kind of switch things up just to a degree here. But we do see Saquon gone at the 1.2, then JJ, Malik Neighbors all the way at the 1.4. I mean, there is a lot of Malik Neighbors buzz right now, even with the quarterback situation looking a little bit shaky going into the season. But nonetheless, will I be surprised if Neighbors goes that early? Maybe, but maybe not at the same time. You see a string of running backs gone there with Bijan, Gibbs, and Henry. I don't, at this point in time, see Henry going in the first round. We can skip ahead here and we see Ashton Jeanty gone at the 2.6. In terms of doing mock drafts with our community and with actual real people, and in terms of like underdog best ball drafts, Jeanty is the other running back who you're going to see more than often selected in the first round. I would say Henry is still hanging around somewhere in the early to mid second round area. Nonetheless, he's gone at the 1.7 here, and I do think kind of, getting some exposure to mock drafts where things look a little bit different does not hurt whatsoever, even in the month of June. But then we see a couple wide receivers gone. CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Drake London, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Once again, a majority of the mocks that I've ran with actual real people, you do see these wide receivers gone, except maybe Drake London's closer to the beginning of the second. Brian Thomas Jr., who we see gone at the 2.5, I've seen selected more than often in the first round. A.J. Brown still kind of hanging out in the beginning of the second round. In terms of other players gone here, we do see Devon Achane and Christian McCaffrey at the top of the second. I don't think that's necessarily out of the norm. Sometimes Achane a little bit later in the second, but C-Mac will be more than often at the top of the second round. Like I said, Ashton Jeanty, you can definitely see Jeanty gone in the first round and early in the first round at that. Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving, you'll see these guys mid to late round second round picks, right? Brock Bowers is a player that right now is going early to mid second rounder. So Brock Bowers there at the 2.4 is pretty spot on. Then we got Ladd McConkey, Josh Allen, and T. Higgins. So that leaves some pretty interesting names here at the top of the board for us to select from. Now, I will say, in terms of mock drafts that I'm running with the Catch community, we're seeing quarterbacks pushed back a bit, and that's really common whenever we start drafting early in the kind of process for the upcoming season. Quarterbacks are a little bit pushed back this time of year, June, July. It's August when we start to get a better feel of when quarterbacks are actually going to be selected. And I still think, in terms of the first quarterbacks you're going to see off the board, it's going to be Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Jaden Daniels in some sort of order amongst those three guys, right? So Allen, the 210, I don't know if you're going to exactly see that on a regular basis right now. Ladd McConkey, T. Higgins at the end of the second makes plenty of sense. So when I am looking at drafting from the 1.1 at this point in time, I'm either going running back or I'm going wide receiver. We went with Jamar Chase here in this specific mock. So for me, what I want to do is I want to kind of start this draft with my bounce back strategy, is what I always call this in the offseason. We started with a receiver. Now we're going to select a running back. Then we're going to select another wide receiver, and we're just going to repeat that process unless there's just like a screaming value on the board at either position that we don't want to pass up. And then generally with this position, we're just going to take a look at specific tight ends that we think can fall to us in a good range and still go with a, tight end that we have a lot of confidence in, but we're not necessarily spending an early round selection on a tight end. And then we're going late round quarterback. So get ready for that as well. And I think right now, the way things are, late round quarterback, there's a ton of value. So let's go ahead and resume the draft. Take a look at running backs here. JT, Kyron Williams, Chase Brown, Breece Hall, James Cook, the top running backs available. I'm okay with most of these guys, but I think JT and Kyron Williams are the players that we have to take the strongest look at here. Can really take, whichever player you like. We look at Jonathan Taylor, what he did last year, finished as the RB12 overall in full PPR. Then Kyron Williams, a player that I've talked a lot about so far this offseason, was the running back 7 overall last year. And right now, like I said, I'm okay with either guy, whoever you want to go with here, but I'm just slightly higher on Kyron Williams. I really think when we look at what Kyron has done over the past 2 seasons, RB7, over 12 rushing touchdowns, double-digit, touchdowns overall with the receiving touchdowns added in there 2 years in a row. I'm not really worried about any of the competition here. There's rumors that the Rams are going to extend him. Sean McVay has shown over time that he will run a running back into the ground. So I love Kyron Williams there. I love JT there as well. There's some other good names. So whoever you guys want to go with there. And then now we're going to select the best available wide receiver: JSN, Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, Scary Terry, Mike Evans, the top receivers on the board. And I will mention Marvin Harrison Jr., who I have seen go at the end of the second round, as early as mid-second round in some drafts. But I really like Garrett Wilson here. I like Terry. I do like Marvin Harrison. Tyreek Hill probably fall back in most drafts you guys see right now. But I'm going to go ahead and just stick with JSN here. And it's just a nice, solid start here. We've got our RB1 in Kyron Williams. Could have gone JT. Then we got 2 solid wide receivers in Jamar Chase as well as JSN. So nothing wrong with this start whatsoever. So I'm not going to break down each and every round as extensively as I did the first 2 rounds. You guys can kind of take a look at the board and see who's there, and we'll just kind of make some notes as I deem appropriate. But see a couple quarterbacks gone, which helps our given strategy, and then we're just going to go right back to the running back position. And yeah, I mean, quite a few running backs gone there, some value gone for sure. So we're looking at Kenneth Walker, rookie Omarion Hampton, Chuba Hubbard, James Conner, and David Montgomery as the top options. Remember, we're going wide receiver, running back, and then wide receiver again. So I'm really high on Kenneth Walker. I love his overall ADP. I'm not always necessarily crazy about, we just got JSN. He's on the Seahawks. Now we're going back to Kenneth Walker. But also, I just want you guys to remember, generally speaking, we're going to go with the best available players. So if you want to go Omarion Hampton here, I don't mind it, but I will make a note. I mean, rookie fever is getting a little hot, especially for those of you guys who are in dynasty leagues, and a lot of dynasty leagues, as I am as well. But sometimes when it starts to bleed into redraft season, just be a little cautious. I like Hampton as much as the next guy, but we got Najee Harris in that backfield. We might end up with J.K. Dobbins in that backfield as well. It'll take a little bit of time for Hampton to completely take over the backfield. Not a bad pick, don't get me wrong, but I have reservations. So I'm going to roll with Kenneth Walker here. And then just taking a look at wide receivers, we got Zay Flower, Devonta Smith, Xavier Worthy, Olave, and George Pickens, Jameson Williams as the top available players here. And there's certainly an argument for any of these guys. But if you guys have followed this channel for any amount of time, you know that Devonta Smith is just that guy, that player that I pick over and over again. We look at what Devonta Smith has done in terms of consistency over the past couple years. Missed some time last year, didn't hit that 1,000 yard mark, but it's just always a player who's going to bring you consistency on a regular basis. And in terms of fantasy points per game, double-digit average on a yearly basis is almost guaranteed with Devonta Smith. So I like Xavier Worthy there if you wanted like a little bit more of an upside type selection, but I'll go with Devonta Smith. And I like Jameson Williams there's a lot of good names. So let's take a quick breather here and just kind of start to evaluate the tight end position. And I'm kind of going for like the range of like Mark Andrews to David Njoku, maybe Tyler Warren. But the guy that I'm really keeping a close eye on in mock drafts right now is Evan Ingram. I think he's going to have a large role in that Broncos offense. So we got some time before we need to go with a tight end. And I think if you punt tight end, like there are a lot of good options. You know, Dallas Goedert's hanging out there late. There's always going to be some sort of player at the tight end position who can give you some value late. And hey, I mean, look at guys like Johnny Smith last year off of the waiver wire. Ended up being an absolute stud. There's always options, right? So let's go ahead and go back to our strategy here and take a look at another running back and just keep loading up. You know, we have our RB2, we have our RB1, obviously, then our wide receiver 1, 2, and our first flex. A lot of, leagues out there are now going to a double flex format, something I've been used to for a while. So I want to kind of load up on these skill position players, especially in full PPR format. So Aaron Jones is sitting atop the board here. I don't mind an Aaron Jones pick here. I really like Tony Pollard in this kind of later range, and I really like DeAndre Swift in this later range as well. And one thing when you're drafting from the 1.1 that can kind of tend to happen is you may have to kind of reach against ADP, which as a side note for me, I don't really pay a lot of attention to ADP. I think it's a good guideline, but you got to be confident to go out and get your guys. And when you're drafting at the top of the board at the 1.1, you do get a little bit stretched thin in that regard. So like if you like DeAndre Swift here or Tony Pollard ahead of ADP, I have no problem with it whatsoever. Those players are not going to come back to you at the 8.12 more than likely. So really pick your poison with whatever running back you want here. And for the sake of argument, I'll go DeAndre Swift, but I'm okay with just about any of those guys we mentioned. Then we look at wide receivers atop the board: Chris Godwin, Rome Odunze, Calvin Ridley, Khalil Shakir, Ayuk, Myers. There's plenty of names here, but we've kind of filled out our second flex spot. We want to get a guy who can come in here and also fill in that flex spot if need be. So I'd be looking at Chris Godwin, who was on absolute fire last year before he got hurt. The goal is that he's going to be ready by week 1. This is going to be an offense that's going to throw the football a ton this year. And yeah, there's a plethora of pass catchers here. We know that. But I'm okay with Chris Godwin here. I also like Calvin Ridley here. I do think that this is kind of an underrated player who's had over 1,000 receiving yards in 2 straight years. Not the highest touchdown mark, but enough. But I do like him with a rookie quarterback there who's going to need a security blanket. But we'll go with Chris Godwin here because I think that Buccaneers offense is an offense that I'm going to end up talking about a lot throughout this offseason. Just an offense that I believed in a lot last offseason, and I'm going to continue to believe in this year. I think they're going to throw that rock a lot. So this is the point as we're moving into the 8th round here where I want to take a strong look at the tight end position with guys like Mark Andrews and Johnny Smith off the board. That's going to leave the top available tight end as Evan Ingram. So let's take Ingram off the board. And now we're kind of like veering away from the tradition of this strategy, as now we have a different skill position on the board here. And there's nothing like crazy attractive at running back: Ramondre Stevenson, Javonte, Cam Scatterbo, maybe Charbonnet, Tajay Spears. I like the value on Rashad White. We got wide receiver Stephon Diggs probably on a boat right now. I don't know if I want to draft him. Ricky Pearsall, I think a very good value here. Matthew Golden's interesting. Josh Downs a good value. I don't think Pittman's a bad value necessarily. Look at quarterbacks. I will say quarterbacks are going kind of rapidly in this draft. You won't see that as often in mock drafts with like your friends or different fantasy community stuff like that. You may, but more than likely you won't. But we'll continue to hold off at quarterback, and let's just go ahead and take a bit of an upside pick at wide receiver. Let's go Ricky Pearsall. Good with that. We know Ayuk's not going to be ready to start the season, and that's going to give a huge bump to Ricky Pearsall. I mean, we still got Jawan Jennings there, but I like him in that range. And got DeMarcus Robinson on this team, and obviously Brock Purdy. Obviously George Kittle. I guess Brock Purdy as well. But now we're starting to swiftly wrap things up here, just a couple rounds left. And yeah, quarterbacks going rampant here. I mean, a couple of teams with double quarterbacks, that's going to push back things a bit. You're probably going to be able to land a better value quarterback, quote unquote. And we'll just very quickly look through at every position here as our roster is starting to fill up. We just need a quarterback and 2 skill position players. So ideally, we're going to get a QB1, obviously. Then I would say another running back and another wide receiver to wrap up this draft. And I absolutely love the value of Dak Prescott at this point in mock drafts right now. But you got some other names. Justin Fields is really interesting. There's a lot of faith in Drake May as well. Trevor Lawrence, some people like at this point. I'm not necessarily against it. You got some later round guys like Tua and Matthew Stafford sitting there. Look at running backs. Rachaad White is here. This is a player that I'm targeting aggressively in drafts. I don't want to go on a huge Rachaad White rant here, but still very involved in that offense last year. Obviously did not live up to his ADP, but we break things down. What he did last year, even as Bucky Irving started to emerge, we look at 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5 single-digit games. Still gave you double-digit fantasy points in every other game. Still going to be a part of this offense that I think is going to be in the red zone a lot. So I absolutely love his ADP right now. Jawan Jennings did last all the way to the 10.12. So if we didn't go Pearsall, maybe we went Golden, or maybe we took a quarterback, something like that. He's a good value here as well. Then tight ends, I'm good with just drafting one tight end, but we do have some good names like Dallas Goedert. Probably not Kyle Pitts, but you got some interesting guys like Pat Freiermuth, Ertz, Henry, Cade Otton, if you do end up absolutely punting the position. But for the sake of today's mock, let's go ahead and let's take Dak Prescott off the board. Just don't forget, Dak was your QB3 in 2023. I know last year was not the best start, but I think that Dak, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, there is going to be a lot of throwing the football again. We got Jake Ferguson. I know the running back room's a big question mark, and the offensive line is not fantastic, but I'm okay with Dak at this point in the draft. If you wanted to take another quarterback here, like a Justin Fields, or maybe target one at the 12.12, no problem with that whatsoever. But let's take Rachaad White off the board here. And right now we're looking at, 1, 2, 3, 4 running backs, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide receivers, a tight end, and a quarterback. So once again, really with this final selection here, you can do basically whatever you want, whoever you think is the best value. If Justin Fields had fallen to 12.12, I'd probably take a shot on Fields there to give us some rushing upside behind Dak Prescott, right? There's not really any running backs. Of course, there's an argument for some guys here. Jadon Blue, Trey Benson, Ray Davis. There's some interesting names, maybe Isaac Garando with the health of CMC up in the air. We look at wide receivers, there's arguments and players I like and players that would be drafted in deeper drafts, like best ball drafts, whatever. I don't know that we have to take a wide receiver here. Tight end, once again, some interesting names, but I'm okay with Evan Ingram. So we could go with another quarterback if we wanted to here. I think overall, quarterback or wide receiver would be the correct selection here. I just don't think there's enough value at running back or tight end. So really with this final selection, just take whoever you think is the best overall value or whoever fits the build of your roster the best. If we were to go quarterback, let me go ahead and just pause this one more time. It's probably Tua or Matthew Stafford for me, maybe Geno Smith, but once again, those guys are probably going to be on the waiver wire in a majority of your leagues. Could go with a handcuff like Isaac Garando, those guys that we mentioned, but I think that we're probably just going to end up taking the best available wide receiver. And speaking of earlier in this draft with Stephon Diggs maybe being on a boat, let's just go Kyle Williams, who, listen, I'm not 100% reading into the Stephon Diggs going to get cut news, but if he does, Kyle Williams is probably going to be the next man up. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of names on this roster at the wide receiver position. So maybe go for some upside, maybe go for what fits your roster the best, but nonetheless, that final pick of the draft, just take whoever you think is going to fit your roster the best, maybe give you the best upside. So there you guys have it, drafting from the 1.1 at this point in time in the offseason. This is what I think is the best overall strategy. Start with a wide receiver, running back, and then just alternate between the positions. This is going to be a strategy that I'm implementing from basically every draft selection in the off season, every wherever I'm drafting from, I'm okay with this draft strategy, and I will do some videos, doing things like hero running back, double hero running back, aggro wide receivers. And if you guys are new to the channel, we do a lot of live streams where we run mock drafts with the community, and I'll try out different strategies and a little bit of a more competitive setting, so you guys can see those as well. We got a lot of time, a lot of drafting to do, but this is our first recorded mock draft of the offseason. So there you guys have it. Dak Prescott, Evan Ingram, Jamar Chase, JSN, Kyron Williams, Kenneth Walker, Devonta Smith would be my starting lineup, including one flex. And then that second flex, we got, plenty we can alternate with: DeAndre Swift, Chris Godwin, Ricky Pearsall, Rashad White, and Kyle Williams. So pretty solid overall draft, if you ask me. Like I said at the beginning of the video, if you guys are new to the channel, this is all we do here all year long: free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. And most importantly, if you guys have any fantasy football questions, redraft, dynasty, or best ball, drop me a comment down below. I'll get back to every single comment on this video. With that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.